Joining us today on the first ever Ilovetowatchyouplay.com podcast is Amanda Cromwell, head coach of the UCLA women's soccer team. Amanda, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on and being our very first guest. Let's jump right in. You played high school basketball and soccer, club soccer, ended up earning a scholarship to UVA. What was the hardest part about being a multiple sport athlete back then?
It was hard. I remember having spring soccer practice and then running off to go to AAU basketball practice and, having one thing after another. But it wasn't too difficult. I think nowadays it's much harder, because sometimes the coaches make it much harder because of the seasons being all year round and not getting a break from one sport to the next.
And was it this young, at this age, that you realized, or that people told you there was something special about your skill and that you might be able to go as far as you did?
I think, when I was young, I loved soccer and basketball equally well. I remember being super excited for basketball games coming up, and same as soccer. And I think I was 11 or 12 when I was playing ODP, and I made the U under 14 ODP state team. And I think as a 12-year-old. So I think I was like, oh, I'm pretty good. I think for the first time I realized, I made it with all these older girls. And I think from there on, I realized that soccer would probably be the sport that takes me to play in college.
And what kind of involvement did your parents have with you as a young athlete? Were they overbearing? Were they in your business a lot? Were they just dropping you and going? What were they like?
Well, my parents were, I was the youngest of 5. So by the time I came along, they were pretty burnt out, I think. But no, they loved that I was into a lot of different things. And as my siblings were as well, very athletic family. And my parents, my dad coached basketball when I was younger. He was the manager for our soccer team. My mom would come watch all the games and everything, but they didn't come and watch practice. They would drop me off. I would get rides to practice. We kind of fended for ourselves as far as the carpool. My very first club team coach, Ron Wackett, was he'd come up from work, and another teammate and I would be waiting for him to come home to take us to practice with him. And he was great. He was an awesome coach to have as a youth player.
So would you say, like, when you get into the car after the game, would your dad have advice? Would he get into your ear? Could you hear him yelling at the ref?
They did yell at the refs. I think they were, especially in basketball, I think being inside in a smaller court instead of a bigger field. I didn't remember hearing him much in soccer, but in basketball, I know I didn't hear him as much as other people told me they heard them. But that part didn't bother me. I didn't care about that. But they weren't critiquing me or telling me what I needed to do better. I think my dad was there to help me when I was younger. He'd go shoot with me at the playground and, just make sure I got my reps. And I wanted to do that. He never, I think he never pushed me to go do anything.
What, if anything, can you pinpoint when you were younger and you were an athlete that maybe separated you from some of those great athletes that you played with on your club team, for example?
Well, I think I have an innate competitive nature. My dad has a great story of when I was 5, 6 years old playing. Back then, little girls, there weren't a whole lot of little girls playing. We were playing with all the boys, so there might be like two girls on every team. And my dad tells the story still to this day of a parent of a boy on the other team coming over and complaining because the girl is playing too rough against his boy. And I was a very physical player, very competitive, had a passion and just a will to win. And I think that separated me out as I went along, and I was very consistent. My work rate was never questioned. I always went out and did what I needed to do.
Did you, I know they always say, I wanted to play basketball all the time. Were you playing soccer? Were you playing basketball in your free time? Did you find that you were dedicating a lot of extra time to your sports?
I think we were. If we weren't playing our sport, we were playing something. We were out just outside all the time playing. We didn't have the video game thing or the social media thing to distract us. So we were always just outside. I just remember coming home from school and going to, shoot baskets or soccer was different because, I had practiced a lot. So I didn't necessarily go work on things on my own on soccer until I got older, a little bit older in high school. But I definitely, once I started getting into high school, I would go on runs on my own and those kind of things. But I do feel like we just were outside doing a lot of things just on our own.
When did you realize you might be able to play in college and that you might have a career past high school and club?
I think once I got into high school and I made varsity as a freshman, and I was on a good club team, and we were getting some attention, going to some good tournaments and winning. You don't really know until you can play against some other good teams in other states. Or really, like, how good is our team? How good am I? And you have to play against the better players and the better teams to realize that. So when I got into ODP and made the regional team, and when our club team did very well at tournaments, I knew our team was good. So I knew the teammates I had on my team were also very good, and I was one of the best players on the team. So I had a sense of, okay, maybe I can do this at the next level. And I knew college definitely was in my sights as a freshman in high school. And I, as much as I loved basketball, I knew I wasn't going to be getting the scholarship offers like soccer.
And really, college was just the beginning for you. You played 3 years in the pros, 7 years on the national team. You were on the 95 World Cup team, the 96 Olympic team as an alternate. And once you come up to that level where you're really kind of funneling up to the top tier of talent, what do you think you maybe possessed that some of the other girls on your college level team didn't?
Well, as you go higher and higher, it definitely there's so little things when you get to the highest level. I think there's a lot of athletes that have potential to play in college or potential to play on a national team. But the reason they don't is they may not want it as much. They don't have the mentality to go after it, and they don't have the consistency in their training habits and their attitude and how they react to setbacks. And those are things I definitely had. I had some injuries along the way in my career. In college, I made the national team as a sophomore in college, but it wasn't right away. It wasn't my very first camp, and all of a sudden it happened. I actually made the national team after not being invited into a camp, and I wasn't supposed to be there, but a player got injured, so I got a late invite. And those are the situations where I reacted well to something that was potentially negative, and then all of a sudden I'm in that camp and playing with nothing to lose and competing, and I make my very first international trip on the national team. So I think along the way I just showed that consistency, and I showed that I had the passion for it.
So what have you seen maybe different that when we were younger and we played sports, different in the kids today because you're around a lot of them, recruiting them at UCLA?
I think the kids today aren't as able to handle adversity or failures. I think parents need to let them go through some things and figure it out on their own. And they're a little bit more coddled for sure. And we may call that they have a softer mentality. But we need adversity is okay and failure is okay, and they can react to that. And how is their attitude going to be? And they need to know that how they react to something sets them on a new course. And if it's negative, it's not going to be the course they want.
Great, thanks. How has youth soccer changed from when you were a player until now?
Well, youth soccer is a beast. I mean, there's the club system, the ECNL, the AYSO. There's U.S. Soccer, all the development academies, and ID camps, and there's just so much going on now in the youth system. So I understand why athletes nowadays don't find time to play multiple sports, but there's also so many players. The parity out there and the amount of athletes playing, little girls and teenage girls playing soccer is through the roof, and it's even more competitive. And you really have to find what is your niche? What is something that sets you apart? What can you do on the field if you do want to play in college? It's tough. But the great thing for women's soccer is we have over 300 Division I teams alone, and then you have Division II, Division III, junior colleges, NAIA. So if someone wants to play at the college level, there's quite a few options.
And what are you looking for at UCLA that maybe sets one athlete apart from another? Like if they have comparable skills, what are you looking for when you're recruiting?
Athleticism is a big part of it. They have to play at a certain speed. The speed of play at our level, youth national team levels, is a lot higher than club. So their skill set, their ability to read the game, their tactical knowledge, all those things are qualities that we pick out on our recruits. Sometimes it's hard to know. You know, if you only see a kid in a couple club games, and you don't get a feel for how they might organize if they're a defender, or how they might work with a certain player up top as a forward. You really have to look for certain things on how their movement off the ball, and how they deal with a teammate that might give them a bad pass. How is their attitude? Are they making the players around them better, or are they making the players around them worse? Because they're sometimes if a player is really good and they are too demanding on their teammates, those teammates kind of have a fear of failure, and they don't help them. You look at a player like Lionel Messi from Argentina. Everyone in the field is better because he's on the field. He could be as demanding as anybody, I'm sure, because he's the best player on the planet. But he raises the level of every one of his teammates, and that's what we look for. Who makes those players around them better?
What's the most difficult thing about being a student athlete?
Well, a student athlete really has huge time demands. It's like holding a job while being in college. So whether it's getting treatment, going to the training room, sport or strength and conditioning, their actual practice time. We have video sessions, we have academic meetings. So there's a lot going on for the athletes, and they really have to prepare themselves, be organized, and know that they have to sacrifice some things socially. The other side of it is they come to UCLA or a top college potentially as a big fish in a small pond where they were in their club or high school, and now they're out of school where they're not the big fish anymore, and they have to learn how to swim upstream, so to speak, and fight for their position. And whether it's a starting position or even a spot on the roster, sometimes just to travel, they have a hard time with that sometimes, knowing that it takes some time, and they just can't show up and think it's going to happen for them just because of who they were as a club player. They really have to work for it.
And is that a large part of what you and your coaches have to do, is manage those egos per se?
You definitely have to manage a roster. And the more talented teams you have, there's some players that are sitting out that could probably start at other schools. So you have to manage the rosters. We start this process back when we were recruiting them. We're very honest about the competitive nature of our program and what it takes to play here. And honestly, some players have said no to UCLA because they don't want it. They don't want that competitiveness day in, day out. They don't want to have to fight for a starting spot or even have to fight to travel, and that's okay. If someone wants to go be the big fish in a small pond somewhere and they know that about themselves, that's okay. And there's some that are a little bit afraid of the challenge, and those are the players. Honestly, then it's not the right fit for them, because if they're not up for the challenge, then UCLA is not the home for them.
Taking that to sort of the youth level, there's all these parents that club hop. So they think their kid should be a forward, or their kid is not the star. Is that advisable or not? I mean, I'm sure it's sort of case by case, but will you be able to recognize a person not a star at a very solid team? I guess that's what they're all looking for eventually, would be someone like you to spot them.
We're very wary of the players that have hopped from club to club to club, because that means they're going to be a player that most likely transfers from one college to the next. They're not going to be happy where they are. They always are looking for the next situation that's going to fulfill them, and they have to know that sometimes they have to stick to it where they are and try to make it work. I get it sometimes for travel purposes. Maybe they change, or maybe they were on a team that was lower level, and then they kind of got discovered, and that's happened before. We see some players that are on some lower level club teams, and we help them find a better club that we think will be more of a challenge for them, playing with better players on a daily basis. There's some players that can't play an ECNL club because they do play other sports, and sometimes they don't allow that, or there's not time for it. So sometimes those players are playing on a lesser club, but they still are good players. They just, they have to find a way to get the training they need on a daily basis, and sometimes that's hard to do when you're playing multiple sports.
But you can still find them, right?
We can still find them. Yeah, we can still find them. It's harder. It's definitely harder, but we can still find them, and we have found them. There's a player at UCLA right now that no one knew about till really her junior year.
Okay, Amanda, what are 3 things that you wish you could get out to all parents today of youth athletes? What are 3 things you wish they would know?
I think the first thing is probably the biggest one for me is let them fail. It's okay to have adversity. It's okay to have some failure, and then have to deal with it. So don't coddle them. Let them figure out some things on their own. 2, if they want to play multiple sports, or if they need to take a break, be really supportive of that and encourage what they want. And 3, it's okay not to be in control. I know it's hard. You're on the sideline and you feel like there's nothing you can control, so you're very vocal and you want to critique or yell at the refs. But it's okay not to be in control, and just take a step back and let it happen, and just tell your kids you love to watch them play.
What are the most valuable lessons that you'd say you learned from playing sports?
Well, you learn how to be a good teammate and a good friend and loyal, and treat people right. And I think girls playing sports is a great thing for their confidence, and to respect their bodies and know how to communicate better. I think all of those things. I think girls playing sports is key for their development. Obviously physical, but I think mental, emotional. As a college coach, I know there's a lot of things coming at these women at this age, and being involved in a sports team, you have to learn to be unselfish and loyal and a good friend, a good teammate, and it gives you a lot of skills for the future, the communication and confidence, leadership skills. We tell our players all the time that things they learn in sports along the way will help them in their career down the line, and their marriages or their relationships, and dealing with children, and how they cope with things, because there's always going to be adversity. And I think sports is a very good life lesson along the way. You can deal with a lot. It might be injuries, and having to come back from things is good for them. And I think, like we've touched on before, at a young age they need to learn to deal with that than just being protected all the time by their parents.
For parents, we're on that hamster wheel all the time trying to keep up with the Joneses, but also wanting to be that, to be able to say, I love to watch you play, and leave it at that. Is that even possible in today's competitive youth sports world?
I think it's possible. I think the parents need to take a step back sometimes and realize the coach is there for a reason. They're in control of the situation, and they need to, I guess, give some more trust to the situation, and be okay with taking a step back and knowing it's okay to push your kids at the right time, or you want to be encouraging, but not critical. I think leave that again to the coaches. And I don't ever remember my parents along the way saying anything negative about the way I played, ever. They could have. I just don't remember it. And I think you tend to remember the negative things. I remember my dad helping me shoot baskets at the playground. I remember my mom bringing her good friend to watch me play soccer, and they'd rather be shopping. They're sitting on the sideline cleaning out their purses, and just the presence of having your parents there supporting you means a lot, and I know that. And it doesn't really matter in the end what they say, and saying, because you don't want them to be all about fluff either. And knowing you didn't play well, and they come over and say, "Oh, good job," and you're like, "No, it wasn't." Like, you don't want to hear that either. And I think I think just saying, hey, I just love being here, and I love watching you play is important, and leave the I think the analysis up to the coaches, and be okay with that.
Awesome. Amanda, speaking of finding a good balance, both of my kids, all three of my kids, have gone to several of your camps and had a great time, worked their tails off. It was the perfect balance of learning a ton about soccer and improving their skills, but having a really good time still. You have 2 more camps left this summer. You have July 5th through 8th as a day camp. July 18th through 21st is your college ID camp. Amanda, tell us a little bit more about them before I let you out of here.
Well, the camps are obviously it's for the youth to come. Some come just as a place to come and have fun. We understand that this is more the day camps. The overnight camps, definitely more for the players, a little more serious. Want to see what it's like to be around college coaches, and we have multiple coaches here, and we do a good mix of fun and learning and training. This past weekend it was super hot, and those girls were. I commend them for their work rate, and their attitudes were great. And I think part of that is because we had fun with them, and we weren't putting them through all these drills and making them feel the burn, because it was hot out there. And we did some fun Olympic competitions, and we had a skit night where they get to dance around, and they get to see the coaches let loose a little bit and be goofy, and it's a really good mix, and we love our ID camp is a great way to be seen. If you're really interested in UCLA or even some of the other coaches we have here, we've had coaches come work our camps just so they can see the quality of players we have at our camp, and it's just a good way to be seen and get a little bit of the college environment and a taste of what our campus is like.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. The girls had the best time. Last thing, your schedule came out today, and it's a doozy. We're looking forward to seeing some of these games. Talk a little bit about the schedule.
Pac-12 released all the schedules today, and I believe right away within the hour it was already our non-conference portion of the schedule is ranked as the hardest in the country. I think the swing that is really hard is we're away at Texas A&M, and then we come home and we have Florida, UNC, and Penn State. So it's going to be, Penn State's a defending national champion. UNC we're doing home and away with every year, and that's always a battle. Florida is a team I'm very familiar with from my time at UCF, and they play very high-level quality soccer. We have Cal and Stanford at home. The Pac-12 schedule obviously is as good as ever. The conference is very strong, so we're going to get some fans out there and support us with our #1 recruiting class coming in. It's going to be a fun team to watch.
Oh, we will definitely be there supporting, as will our soccer teams. We'll bring everybody. Amanda, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.